What is going on, everybody? It is finally time to show y'all my ultimate countdown build, and it seriously is. I dropped a gameplay with it, and we're doing the full build guide right now. I'm excited to talk about this thing. Let's go straight into the build classification, like we always do over here on the channel, and then we'll dive into the game and individual pieces, and I'll explain everything that's going on. Let's get to it. So this is a countdown specific build. That is the whole purpose, and it was designed with that single purpose in mind, was to optimize a build to handle everything that countdown throws at you and excel in all of the different situations. This countdown specific, and it's actually not really like it's a backfire build. We are using the backfire, as you can see, but it wasn't built with that in mind. The backfire was the solution to the problem, which was the optimal countdown build. The build type, it's a little bit of a do-it-all. When I say it does it all, it really can, and you can tweak it a little bit so that it pulls into one direction more than the other. But essentially, it's a close range, DPS, tanky build that also has very tactical usage of skills. You want to play it smart, you can play up close. When it comes down to the hunters, we have tools in our toolbox that are made specifically for them, and so you gotta play smart. The farmability here, listen, it's not the easiest. We don't have any unicorn pieces, like not super crazy unicorn pieces, but it's not gonna be the easiest one to put together. You probably don't have a lot of these pieces already. And depending how you build it, you might be rolling some stuff off its core value. So, not impossible, and it's definitely worth it. So guys, there's a lot going on. Let's get into the game. Alright, here we go. There's a lot to talk about with this build. Let's just go over everything in general, the whole synergy of what's going on here, and then we'll talk about how we're tackling all of those individual pieces. Here it is. All right, we are 100% Hasbro, so we have immunity to all status effects, which was one of the base requirements in making the ultimate countdown build. Watch my video for the whole in-depth of how to make the ideal countdown build, because I really go into all of the different parts of countdown, and we're tackling all of that here in one build. So we're fighting lots of elites, so protection from elites is ideal for survivability. It actually goes way long. It goes a way longer way than just stacking healing or blues. My Crimson Angel build actually has no blues, and using protection from elites and healing, we're still able to be way tankier than we would be if we had blues and not protection from elites. So that's part of it. We want to be, like I said, fully Hasbro, specifically disrupt resistance. You don't need to be Hasbro, but we really want to be disrupt resistance so that we can counter the hunters. It's really annoying when we fight them and they jack your skills. The foam is the best counter to them. To freeze them in place to stop them from kitting is super important. And so we have the right foam on the build, and we're disrupt resistant so that we can use it whenever we need, and they're not going to stop us from trying to stop them. And then, of course, outside of those very important parameters, we want to be able to support the team through targeting hunters, and if we can buff them in any other way as well. And then, of course, we want to be able to contribute damage as much as possible, as well as it be in a package that's tanky enough to not worry about downing as we're, trying to go after the hunters, trying to contribute damage, trying to do the objective. It's really annoying if you're trying to push the objective, and if you're a squishy build, you might get downed. This one, the way it's set up, if you focus on the objective, you really don't need to worry about anyone shooting at you. It's tanky enough to do that, which is pretty sweet. So, how are we tackling all these different elements? Well, what's going on here is we're leveraging Ninja Bike Backpack, which I've talked about quite a bit before. Go check out that guide. This is one of the cases where it's a perfect use case for the Ninja Bike backpack, and this build really does perform well with it. We're using this to activate this for our hazard protection. This is super important. So we're using it with these other pieces to get complete hazard protection. And the main piece here, it's kind of like a template, we need these three, okay? Ninja Bike, Cavalier, and Cheska. Okay, especially with the way things have been changed. The Backfire got buffed, Cheska got buffed, the two-piece, it's super, super strong now, okay? Cavalier two-piece gives us 30% hazard protection, which is really, really good yield. This is the best yield that we're going to get for a two-piece. You do lose a attribute slot with the gear set, of course, but you get really good mileage of it from getting 30% hazard protection right there from that one piece. Then Cheska, the numbers actually work out absolutely beautifully. Yeah, they nerfed the crit chance from 10 to 8, but it actually adds up with the way we have it set up to exactly 60. So that's super satisfying, and you want to be at 60 given how much crit damage that we're putting in. And then we're getting 20% hazard protection there. And then we're rolling Hasbro on every piece except one. So I talked about how this is a very specific build, okay? This one here, or I mean, it could be any roll on any one of your individual gears. You have one slot. Everything else has to be set up exactly like this with Hasbro everywhere, and you need one crit chance to get to the 60%. And then you have one freebie roll that you could choose to use whatever you want. And we'll talk about that in variations. So there's our Hasbro. And then the rest, you can actually slot in whatever you want. Again, more talking variations, but I'm choosing to put strikers in here to get our damage up. We're doing a lot of other things, and like I've talked about before, strikers, it's just the meta for damage, but that doesn't mean you need to double down on damage. When you're doing hybrids, it's really nice to plug in strikers in a more defensive way to then bring your damage back up to decent amounts and really have that best of both worlds. So that's what's going on with our pieces. Let's start talking about some things specifically. So we need to be Hasbro, and that's what I talked about with the pieces. Of course, once you're 100% Hasbro, right? Like we have a separate requirements to be disrupt resistant. Okay, you could build a disrupt resistant build, but then I figured why not just go all the way and become 100% Hasbro? And it's pretty darn nice to be 100% Hasbro. With that, okay, what's the best weapon to use? It is the Backfire by a long shot. There's, I'm pretty darn sure, no other weapon that you can plug into this that would perform better than the Backfire. The Backfire is made for this setup, and it performs really well. Super strong. So that's our main weapon. That's the weapon we're going to be using pretty much the entire time. I never really swap to the other ones unless I've already lost my stacks and I want to shoot something from far. Put any assault rifle you want here, and then pistol, something with sledge would be good, but again, we're pretty much using the Backfire the whole time. The other thing is the enemies are very tanky. Not only are they elites, but they are tanky, so we want something that's more sustain-oriented than just pure burst damage, and the Backfire is an absolute beast for sustain damage, so it works really well. So let's talk about the chest, okay? You want to run a Cheska chest, that's our one piece of high end, and we are choosing to use Vanguard as the talent. Now again, you need Hasbro and crit chance. You do have one option, so that could allow you to put like the crit chance here and then your other random roll here, so that will help you with the farming. It used to be that there was actually no room for error. You needed all of the exact attributes exactly like this because you can't double Hasbro on one piece of high end. But now it's like this, and I'm choosing to use Vanguard, and I think it is a really, really, really strong choice for Countdown. I talked about it in the gameplay, but Vanguard in the Countdown setting actually gives you bonus armor as well, and a lot of people don't know that. It's set up kind of like a raid, and I don't know why is like that. I can't explain that, but what I can tell you is that it does work. And in normal gameplay, it doesn't. It actually says that it's for all other allies that you get the bonus armor, right? I really think they should change that in general as a side note and make it so that you and your whole party get bonus armor. Vanguard's not a top pick for chest talent already as it is. And I think if they did that, it would be a nice little buff that would make it picked a lot more without it being overpowered. I really don't think it's overpowered. For all that to say that it works. So we are getting buffing for the team. We're giving them bonus armor. We're giving ourselves bonus armor and getting survivability from that. And you could actually proc it pretty consistently. And it makes our shield invulnerable for 5 seconds. So that is amazing for, again, I talked about it. It's called the Tactician. We want to be smart with our gameplay. When we want to go for a push with a hunter, being able to pull out a shield, which of course you can whenever you want because we're completely Hasbro, and then have it be invulnerable for 5 seconds while they're shooting at you, because the hunters do hit hard. Nothing's going to change that, except an invulnerable shield for 5 seconds. They can't do nothing to you, and then you foam them, and then your team DPSs them, and you're good to go. And you could see how that plays out in actual countdown matches. So that's the chest, and I think that's your best option here. Then, like I talked about, we're plugging in strikers for damage, and we got the cavalier for hazard protection. And then we actually have our mods that are free. And that'll tie in as well to the specialization, okay? So I'm running protection from elites, like I talked about, is super important for Countdown. I'm running protection from elites on all my pieces. And because we're doing a Hasbro build and not a bleed protection build, I have all these mod slots open. And so I'm able to put whatever I want here. And I think 100% the best choice is protection from elites. It makes a big difference. We're using 3 of our slots plus survivalist is putting us at 47% protection from elites. So on top of the fact that we're getting bonus armor and we have some blues, we're also basically taking half the damage all the time because it's in Countdown. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Survivalist is also useful for the grenade that you get. Applies some status effect. That's pretty nice. But we're mainly running it for that protection from elites. It's worth switching the specialization over that. But other option in the variation section. And then for the skills, it's obvious what we're running here for the skills. It all synergizes beautifully. Riot Foam is the best thing to counter the hunters. And so we're running that. And then we're running Vanguard, of course, with our shield. They go together. You kind of need to. Getting the invulnerable shield is giving us a big wave of survivability when we need it. And at base, it's at tier 3. So that's pretty good. You know, decently healthy shield, but we don't need to pull it out all the time. Most of the gameplay, I actually don't have the shield out. I just pop it in and out to proc Vanguard for everybody. And then because we get the bonus armor too, and we're taking half the damage because of our protection from elites, that's pretty much all the survivability you need for most of the Countdown play until the hunters come in. Now the Riot Foam, I do need to touch on this, actually. And I don't think there's any other builds where you need to talk about this, but there is a mod that you need to run on the Riot Foam that makes a big difference. Okay? You need this mod. +1 ammo. Seriously? It goes a long way. Why? Because we're running a tier 1. We kind of just have it. And you'll notice that running an entire skill tier, yeah, it buffs the other things like radius and snare duration and snare health, but it also gives you an extra ammo. But it also only gives you 1 extra ammo. So if you have this mod, it's kind of like the equivalent of running a whole skill tier. So we can take off a skill tier and run a red core that's giving us 15% extra damage, and then throw this mod on, and then suddenly we have 3 charges. And that's much more useful than having 2. Already 3 is tight. I wouldn't go lower than 3. And if you want to choose to spec more into it, then you can. But seriously, guys, if you don't have this mod already, you can go craft it by crafting random Riot Foam or random chem launcher. mods, and you'll eventually get one. I think that's how I got mine. But yeah, super important. All right, y'all. That is everything I wanted to talk about for the main build, actually. There's a lot going on. So to recap it here, we are 100% immune to all hazards. That is due to Ninja Bike Backpack giving us the bonus with 2-piece Cavalier and Cheska 2-piece. We need the Cheska 2 because of that crit chance. We're running Has Pro on everything except 1 piece, which I'm opting to go armor regen just because, honestly, you could seriously run whatever over here. The Backfire is what synergizes best with this build, and it really works. It does a lot of damage. It's super fun. And of course, because of our 100% hazard immunity, we don't bleed at all from this. And it is a sustained damage beast. We're running Survivalist for that extra protection from elites, along with all of our mod slots, full with protection from elites, giving us 47%, basically taking half damage. We got the shield with Vanguard that is super useful, giving us and the team bonus armor and an invulnerable shield. We got Strikers plugging into our remaining pieces, doing crazy amounts of damage, really helping us out. And then the Ride Foam is our best tool against the Hunters, and make sure you have that extra mod for more ammo. This is an absolute beast setup. Let's talk about some variations that you can do to tweak it to your own playstyle. Alright, so I talked about the Ninja Bike, Cavalier, and Cheska combo. This is the core of what's giving us the hazard immunity and the anchor of the build. You could plug in whatever gear set you want here, actually. Or you can go high end, but I really don't think that's worth it. We have the room to plug in a gear set, and with the way the game is right now, gear sets just work better for what they're made for. So I'm choosing to go Strikers just for damage. I think it fits the best in the countdown gameplay, but you can plug whatever you want in here. You could do Negotiators. You might see that in another build. Hint, hint. You could go Hunter's Fury, but you're not really getting kills that much. That's not really our purpose. Countdown, I wouldn't spec kill-oriented. I would definitely go with more sustain things. You could, I guess, go Heartbreaker, but then you have to always shoot them in the head, and some things don't have heads. I don't like going Heartbreaker unless I have the linked laser pointer, or I'm running the Night Watcher, which we don't have room to run on this build. But yeah, you could play around with this and plug whenever you want. You'll see my rolls right now. I've actually shifted it to be more red the more I've played with it and gotten comfortable with the build. I actually had it more blue before. I have some other pieces that have blue cores on 2 more. So that's where you can play with that balance between tankiness and damage. The blues are really nice because you're tankier. You're going to give more of, because it's your armor for Vanguard. You give 45% of your armor as bonus armor to all enemies. So the more blue you're oriented, the more you'll be buffing yourself and the team with the bonus armor. And of course, our shield isn't yet at tier 6. It's actually only tier 3 the way I have it set up right now. So it would also make your shield healthier, which is pretty cool. So that's totally viable, 100%. I'm actually surprised with how many reds I'm running on this. Usually I would default to a build that's more blue, but because of the 8 people in Countdown, if you play smart, they're not always going to aggro you, so you can kind of get away with being a little more red oriented. And that's how I think a lot of people run like full red builds without even protection from elites I've seen in Countdown. Is because if they're too busy shooting someone else, well, you can just get your damage in. Couple other changes that you can make if you're interested. You could run a different talent on the chest. It's really hard to pass up Vanguard. Now, if someone else is running Vanguard, you can't stack them. So maybe keep an extra piece with different talent. You could go with one that buffs the team, or you could just go straight damage with an Obliterate or something. Because, yeah, if someone else is running Vanguard, like if this build gets popular and everyone starts running it, you can't all stack Vanguard. Have some options in there. So that's another thing you could swap out. I wouldn't swap the chest. I like having the high-end chest with a utility talent. And there's no named Cheska piece that I would want to run so bad that I'm willing to give up the chest talent for it. The only named Cheska piece that we can fit in is Turmoil, and Turmoil doesn't really make sense at all. We really want that single point damage, especially when we're fighting the hunters. It's super important. I would actively dissuade you. I think Turmoil is a bad choice in Countdown. Don't do it. Now, the other thing you could swap out, I really don't think you can swap out the Riot Foam. The Riot Foam is super important, but what you can do is double down on it. Now, we're running Survivalist. So we're running Survivalist for the 10% protection from elites. Now, we also get some outgoing healing, which we're not using. We get the Mender, which I do use in some other builds. Bonus to status affected targets, which is what we're doing with the foam. So that's also another important reason to run Survivalist. And yeah, we don't really care about these other things. Maybe a little skill haste is nice to help recharge our foam, because we're not really speccing that much into that. And the burn nade. The other one I would run is you could go with Technician, because it'll give you a skill tier that'll help you out with your Riot Foam usage. And then EMP could be useful, but mostly for this. And damage to proxies is nice, but it's really for the skill tier that I would say is the other option. And then you have here's all the variability that you want. You can put whatever role you want. There you go. You could go crit damage. You could go, we don't need crit chance. You could go handling. You could go status effects, right? If you want to lean more into an anti-hunter build, instead of caring so much about the damage, maybe you run an extra blue so you're tankier, and then you run status effect here, and then you switch to Technician to get that extra skill tier. That actually sounds pretty good. Now, this is the way I have it set up, and you can't really change it that much, but there are, a couple little tweaks that you could personalize it to how you want to play. And this is the ultimate countdown setup. Alright, y'all, I know this was a bit of a longer build video. There is a lot going on with this setup, and I wanted to cover just about everything, which I think I did. If you have any other questions, comment down below. Go check out the gameplay to see it in action, and stay tuned and subscribe to the channel, because there are more crazy builds coming for you. I hope you like them, and until the next one, enjoy.